Have you ever felt that overwhelming tension in your chest right before a big meeting? Or that knot in your stomach when you're facing a pile of unfinished work? Workplace anxiety is one of the most common struggles people face today. And if you're dealing with it, you're definitely not alone. But here's the thing. The Bible actually contains a powerful cure for this anxiety. And it's found in one of the most direct letters Paul ever wrote. If you're interested in discovering how ancient wisdom can transform your modern stress, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss insights like these. Let's dive into Philippians chapter 4, a passage that has transformed countless lives and can absolutely transform yours too. Paul wrote this letter while imprisoned in Rome, facing genuine danger and uncertainty. Yet his words to the church at Philippi overflow with joy and peace. That's remarkable when you think about it. Here was a man in a Roman prison, chained to guards, facing potential execution, and he's telling people not to be anxious. How could he possibly mean that? The answer lies in understanding exactly what he's prescribing. In Philippians 4 verses 6 and 7, Paul gives us the formula. He says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This isn't toxic positivity. This isn't Paul telling you to ignore real problems or pretend everything is fine. This is a prescription, a step-by-step cure that actually works when you apply it. The first part of the cure is recognizing what not to do. Do not be anxious about anything. Now, Paul isn't saying anxiety will never come. He's saying you have a choice about what you do with it. Anxiety is a signal, like a warning light on your car's dashboard. But most of us don't just notice the warning light, we panic about it. We obsess over it. We let it consume our thoughts from the moment we wake up until we fall asleep. Paul is saying, don't go there. When anxiety knocks on the door, don't invite it in for dinner and a conversation. Instead, Paul gives us the alternative. He says to bring everything to God through prayer and petition. Here's where it gets practical. When you're sitting at your desk and anxiety creeps in, you have a choice. You can spiral into worry, or you can take that exact anxiety and turn it into a conversation with God. You can say, "God, I'm worried about this presentation. I'm concerned about my job security. I'm stressed about this relationship with my boss." You're not pretending the worry doesn't exist. You're redirecting it. You're taking the energy of your anxiety and channeling it into petition. But Paul adds something crucial that we often skip over: thanksgiving. He says to present your requests to God with thanksgiving. This is counterintuitive, right? You're anxious, and Paul is telling you to be thankful? How does that work? The answer is profound. When you pause in the middle of your anxiety and actually list what you're grateful for, something shifts in your brain. You remember that you've been provided for before. You remember that God has been faithful. You remember that even in difficult situations, there have been moments of grace. I like the video if you're finding this helpful, because it helps me know you're getting real value from this content. Thanksgiving isn't about denying your problems. It's about gaining perspective. It's about remembering that your entire life isn't defined by this one stressful situation. You have a job, yes, but you also have people who love you. You have challenges, but you also have health, or family, or simple joys like a good cup of coffee. Gratitude expands your vision beyond the anxiety. Now, here's where Paul's prescription gets really interesting. He promises that when you do this, when you take your anxiety and transform it into prayer and petition and thanksgiving, something supernatural happens. He says the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. Not just your thoughts, but your emotions too. Your heart and mind will be protected. It's like you're building a fortress around your inner life. That peace is described as transcending understanding, which means it doesn't make logical sense. You have real problems, real stressors, real reasons to be anxious, but somehow you feel peace anyway. This isn't something you manufacture. This isn't positive thinking or meditation alone. This is the presence and activity of God in your life. When you practice this discipline of prayer and gratitude, you create space for God to work in your mind and emotions. Let's talk about what this looks like in a real workplace situation. Imagine you're an employee who just learned that your company is downsizing. Layoffs are coming, and you don't know if you'll be affected. Your anxiety is legitimate. Your job is genuinely at risk. According to the world's wisdom, you should stress about this constantly. You should update your resume obsessively. You should network frantically. You should lie awake at night playing out worst-case scenarios. But according to Paul, here's what you do instead. First, you acknowledge the anxiety without letting it control you. You notice it, and you don't push it away, but you don't dwell in it either. Then you pray. You might say, God, I'm genuinely worried about this. I need wisdom about how to respond. I need to know if there are steps I should take. I need security and stability. You're being honest with God about your fear. You're bringing your actual concern to Him. That's petition. Then you add thanksgiving. But God, I'm grateful that even if I lose this job, you've never left me. I'm grateful for the skills I have. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful that you see me and know me. Now you're still going to update your resume. You're still going to be practical and responsible. But you're doing it from a place of peace, not panic. You're doing it from faith, not fear. There's another layer to this passage that we need to understand. Paul goes on to say, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. He's telling us to be intentional about where we place our mental attention. Your mind is like a garden, and you're either cultivating weeds of anxiety or flowers of faith. In a workplace context, this means you stop feeding your anxiety with constant news consumption about the economy or the job market. You stop dwelling on every critical comment your boss made. You stop imagining the worst outcomes. Instead, you actively redirect your thoughts. When you catch yourself spiraling, you think about something that's true, something that's noble, something that's right. Maybe it's the genuine relationships you've built at work. Maybe it's a project you completed successfully. Maybe it's the character you're building through perseverance. This requires practice, and that's important to understand. Paul isn't saying that if you pray once, all anxiety disappears forever. He's prescribing a discipline, a habit, a way of life. Every time anxiety comes, you run through the prescription. You acknowledge it, redirect it to prayer, add thanksgiving, and choose what you think about. Over time, this becomes your default response. Your nervous system gets retrained. Your mind learns a new pattern. The neuroscience actually backs this up. When you consistently practice gratitude and prayer, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're strengthening neural pathways associated with peace and weakening those associated with anxiety. But Paul was teaching this 2,000 years before we had brain imaging technology. He understood something deep about human nature, that our thoughts, our faith, and our emotions are intimately connected. Now, let's address something important. This cure doesn't mean you never take practical action. If you're anxious about your finances, you should create a budget. If you're anxious about a difficult relationship with a colleague, you should seek to communicate or get wise counsel. If you're anxious about your performance, you should work to improve. The cure for anxiety isn't passivity. It's taking the right action from the right place. You're not paralyzed by fear. You're moving forward with faith. One more critical aspect of Philippians 4 that we can't overlook is the context of community. Paul is writing to a church, to a people together. He's not just telling individuals to handle their anxiety privately. He's describing a community where people can be vulnerable, where people can share their burdens, where people can pray for one another. When you're facing workplace anxiety, don't isolate. Find a trusted friend, a mentor, a counselor, a faith community. Share what you're going through. Let others pray for you. This isn't weakness. This is wisdom. There's also a beautiful invitation in how Paul frames this. He doesn't come across as authoritarian or judgmental. He's writing as someone who has experienced deep suffering himself. He's not saying just think positive thoughts and your problems will disappear. He's saying, I've been in dark places. I faced real threats to my life. And I found that when I take my anxiety to God with thanksgiving, I experience a peace that doesn't make sense, but it's real and it sustains me. That's the voice of experience. Workplace anxiety specifically is unique because we spend so much of our lives at work. Our job often feels like it defines us. Our sense of security and identity get wrapped up in our career. When work is stressful, it affects everything: our sleep, our relationships, our health, our spiritual life. That's why Paul's cure is so relevant today. He's not addressing a minor inconvenience. He's addressing something that touches every area of your life. The promise of Philippians 4 is that you don't have to live in that state of anxiety. You don't have to be a person who's constantly stressed, constantly worried, constantly living in fight or flight mode. You can learn to be a person who faces real challenges, but does so with an underlying peace. You can be effective and productive and careful about your work, but not obsessed or driven by fear. That's the transformation Paul is offering. Here's something to consider as you apply this. The peace that Paul describes isn't the absence of problems. It's the presence of God in the midst of your problems. It's knowing that you're not alone, that you're not responsible for everything, that there's someone bigger than your circumstances. For many people in the workplace, this is revolutionary. We're taught that you have to control everything, manage every risk, be anxious and obsessive to be successful. But Paul is saying there's another way. There's a way of trusting, of resting, of bringing everything to God. If you found this explanation of Philippians helpful, please like the video. It means so much to me and helps the channel grow, so we can reach more people who are struggling with these real issues. I'd also genuinely love to hear from you in the comments. What's one area of your work life where anxiety has been the biggest struggle for you? Is it performance pressure, job security, difficult relationships, workload, or something else? Share your experience because I know there are others watching who are facing the exact same thing, and your comment might be exactly what they need to hear today. As you go forward from this video, I want to encourage you to try Paul's prescription. The next time you feel anxiety rising at work, don't push it away, but don't dwell in it either. Take it to God in prayer. Be specific about what you're worried about. Then, pause and list 3 things you're grateful for. Feel how your perspective shifts. Over time, this becomes a superpower in your professional life. You become someone who can face challenges without being consumed by them. You become someone who has genuine peace in the midst of legitimate stress. And that's not just good for your mental health. It's transformative for your work, your relationships, and your entire life. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I release new content regularly that digs into biblical wisdom for modern challenges.